Mr. French Thompson.
French Thompson, 7148 East Main Street, Scottsdale, Arizona. Thank you, Mayor Lane, Vice Mayor Milhaven. I'm bringing this map back to you again. I wanted to show you that this blackened out area on the right side is the equivalent in dwellings as the squared out area on the left side. All of those homes in that neighborhood are going to be stacked up one on top of the other to be in those areas right here. I just want to let you know that that entire neighborhood will be encompassed in those two little small areas. This right here happens to show how many cars are parked on the street in that neighborhood. These are not the ones in the carports. These aren't the ones in the garage. These are the spillover cars. So I'm coming to ask you, as my city council, to help protect the downtown. Here's a little photograph that happens to have, within that short little area, there's 10 cars parked on the street. In this photograph right here, which I'm not getting the whole thing on there, but there's 13 cars and 12 cars in that short little area right there. I just implore you to protect the downtown arts district. Development comes in with a lot of money, and we in the state of Arizona make a lot of money through development. I'm not against development. What I really don't want to do is see the downtown be overrun by spillover parking. There was a parking study in 2015. One of the interesting things it says, the issue with parking shortages is often related to where public parking is located, how visible it is, and how far patrons are willing to walk rather than the actual, surplus and deficit. So does that mean people are going to park over in Fashion Square's Nordstrom parking lot and walk to the downtown? They're not going to do that. Let's be realistic. And these homes are going to have, that high-rise is going to have 2 cars per east unit. We have cars here. That's what we do in Arizona. Another thing that was saying in that report says during the peak parking period, more than 40% of all parking was vacant. Listen, they got to be dreaming and smoking dope to come up with those numbers. They can't even possibly be real. 40% is all vacant. Here's one of the things that I'm just saying is that we need to watch what the development does and have the developers supply enough parking for their developments. So I implore you, please watch over us and protect us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Next, Mr. Bob Pejman.
Good evening, Mayor Lane, council members, Bob Pejman, own Pejman Gallery, address is on the record, and I want to talk about 2 items. The first one is employee parking in the Arts District, and the other one is the In-Lieu program having to do with that. So what I ask you that if you don't care about anything at all, at least care about employee parking, because the employees have to work there, and they have to park there all day. And even if you think in meters down the road, they still got to park there all day, so they need spaces. Let me give you an illustration. Legacy Gallery, 11 employees, they have 3 private parking spaces. My own building, about 5 people work there, I have 0 parking spaces. There's a real estate office across the street from me. There are 15 to 17 realtors, 0 private parking spaces. So where do they park? First they take the public spaces and then they spill over to the street. And that's the situation right now. So right now, today, we start with a substantially reduced inventory of parking spaces for the customers because the employees are taking about half of them already. Once Museum Square and Canopy open up, there's going to be substantial spillover. Let's not kid ourselves. No study can prove it, and I'm telling you there's going to be a spillover. So what's going to end up is that their employees will take up pretty much what's left from the remaining spaces. So at the end, we end up with a scenario where the biggest part of the parking pie is going to be occupied by employees. So let's say 70-80% is employee parking, leaves 20% or less for customers, and we count on the customers to come down here and spend money. Your tax revenues rely on that. They don't generate by employees parking there and not spending money. Why are we in this shape? According to the city document, over 500 phantom parking spaces were sold over the past years to that general area. But for every one of those phantom parking spaces that was sold, there was supposed to be a real parking space generated or constructed in some parking lot. Some have. You have 130 spaces in the underground. You have 52 spaces behind on First Avenue. Maybe there's some other ones, but they sure don't add up to 500. And I think that they took that money and they spent it elsewhere in Old Town. And so we're in this situation right now. Look, we support Museum Square, but we're afraid about the parking cannibalization. The only way the city can address this right now is the only option you have is one lot behind Panera Bread. And I want to see if we can squeeze the most amount of space out of there. And also let's look at creative ways, that increase parking space around the hotels and any other solution. But we need to address this problem or it's going to really be bad down the road. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pejman.